Hi, good morning. Welcome to our worship this morning at Thomaston Road Church of Christ, our Sunday school period, I should say. We're glad that you're here. Whether you're here in person or whether you're watching us online, we welcome you. Typically, this is a bodybuilders class, and it's one of our adult classes here at Thomaston Road, but we're doing something different this morning. We have a special guest speaker this morning, so we've combined all our classes, and there will be a more thorough introduction later, but I want to introduce you to Ron Brown. We know Ron because he comes and updates us every year. Ron is with the organization Save Asian Souls. He's going to speak to us this morning, both in the Sunday school period and in the worship period. So I don't want to waste any more of his time. I give you Ron Brown.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be with you this morning. It's been a long time. We got stranded in Asia and had to spend 3 months in quarantine in the Philippines. So we've only been back in the United States 1 year this month. Our work is going great in Asia in spite of the virus. The virus has caused us to have a lot more work, and I'll show you some of that this morning. We have two displays out front, Save Asian Souls and Casa Esperanza of Angels. Casa Esperanza of Angels is an orphanage which is operated and overseen by my son in the Philippines. And that's where we had left Bangkok, Thailand, was going by to see the new building, and that's where it happened. We got caught there with the virus, and the government closed the airport, and we were there for 3 months and couldn't even go outside the house. Okay, go ahead to the next slide. The virus has caused the trafficking to be a little different situation. I guess if the border between Texas and Mexico was closed, trafficking would actually have decreased, but because it's now on the web, it has not decreased to any substantial. Go to the next slide. The International Justice Mission is a non-governmental organization that works to identify and rescue young girls. Because of the information that they report, previously I would say, hey, we take in girls to avoid them from being sold at sex slavery between the age of 10 and 20. We've had to lower that down to age 8, between the age 8 and age 20, because the Muslim sheikh, who has a harem, a large harem, will pay $100,000 for an 8-year-old girl that's a virgin. And that's just horrible, the most horrible thing that I can imagine. But that's the reality. Go to the next slide. Why are hundreds of people, and many of you that support girls in Asia, why are we involved in this work? It's to protect these innocent girls from sex slavery. And there are slaves markets all over the world, and they're continuing to operate. I guess the largest one is in Moscow, but there are many in Africa also. The reason I'm 84, and the reason I'm going to continue until I can't do anything is because these girls are priceless in my sight and in God's sight. Go to the next slide. These are the same things that I told you about in the past. These are the items that we do at the safe houses. We have 32 safe houses, Nepal, Laos, Thailand, and the Philippines, where we bring in these girls, and you'll see a few pictures of the girls. We provide them these things so that they will be completely free of any possibility of being sold into slavery. Go to the next slide. These are the numbers of girls. We have a total of 310, and we get new girls in every day, almost. I know one came in just the other day that has been approved to come to a safe house. And the total have been baptized, 141, because we teach the Bible every day to these girls. And some areas might miss a few days or something, but most of the time we're trying to reach a goal of teaching them the Bible every day. Go to the next slide. This is just typical of one of the safe houses, the number of girls that will be found in the safe house. Namaste is a greeting in Nepalese. It means the spirit in me greets the spirit in you. And that's what the girls are doing, holding their hands like that, because that's the first thing when you come in contact with a person from Nepal. Next slide. This is our largest facility. We were in Asia for 7 months. The main reason I was in Asia was to build this facility. This facility houses 60 girls. And these are the girls that you see in their uniforms. Now you see one little young girl there. She and her 2 sisters were living with a father who was a drug addict. It wasn't a house, it was kind of a tent shelter with a tarpaulin over it. How they lived there, I don't know. It's amazing. Well, we were, at that time, ready to take the 2 girls. They were teenage girls. They were in danger. I don't know why he didn't sell them before. It's that if he had been in his mind, he probably was not, he would have sold them to a recruiter. But the 2 girls, we said, yeah, we'll take the 2 girls. And the girl said, we will not go unless you can take our little sister with us, because she is not safe here with our father, who is a drug addict. And that's the reason we took her into the safe house. Go to the next slide. This is the new safe house that we went to see, and no girls were living in the safe house when we were there, so we stayed in that safe house until the government said, hey, you need to go to a house and stay by yourself. The government would come and check our temperature every morning and every night for the last 30 days before we could leave the island. The only way we were able to get off the island and get to an airport where we could fly to Seoul, South Korea, was to charter a plane, $3,700. I have never flown in a plane that was that old in my life. I looked at the I'm a pilot, so I looked at the instrument panel and I noticed that nothing was working except the airspeed and the RPM. He was holding his cell phone in his hand and using a GPS to navigate, and he said, I've never landed at Manila before. That gave us a lot of confidence. We made it without any problem. We were in the Manila airport all day waiting for our flight to get to Seoul, South Korea. Then we had a 6-hour layover. Then we went to Los Angeles to Dallas, Dallas to Houston, back to where our motorhome was located. Go to the next slide. That's inside, and it is very nice because it's all new, like the other facility that I built. And the children have a very good life. Now, the reason you see the very young little girl there on the left, she's the daughter of the house parents. At each facility, we have house parents who oversee the children that we take care of. Next one. That's the bed where they live. Very nice. Go to the next one. Do you have some of those out on the board out there on the table? You'll see a little thing that says Flora's Story. Pick up one of those. I'm not going to read all this to you, but she's about 8 years old, a little girl. It's such a pitiful, pitiful life. It's just unbelievable. Pick up a copy and read it. Okay, go to the next slide. Now, that's a Bible study in Vientiane, Laos. Go to the next slide. Okay, the big thing that we are really working hard on this year is called self-sustainability. I'm 84. I don't have a lot of years to go, but I will go to the end. In fact, some people ask, when are you going to retire? We know you're old. I tell them, I plan to work a half a day on the day before my funeral. That gives them an answer. That may not work out that way, but that's the plan anyway. Go on to the next slide. Okay, this is our vocational training. Some of the girls that we bring in are in their 16, 17, 18, even could be 20-year-old. The market for girls after the 20 years of age is not very good. It's hard to sell them, so they want to get the younger girls. But we train girls so that they can't go to school at their age. They can have a profession to make a living. Poverty is the main problem. If they're in poverty and the recruiter comes and says, I want to take you to the United States or to Canada, to Australia, you have a wonderful life, you have a job, you may marry a rich man. And they believe it, and they go with him. And they don't know that they're going to be sold on a sex slavery. It's horrible. There are more slaves in the world today than has ever existed in the history of the world. But it's because of this. Go to the next slide. That's inside. Go to the next one. These are the girls located in Vientiane, Laos, the capital city of Laos. And you see the macrame that they are making, which they will sell after the lockdown is over. Right now, the border between Thailand and Laos is closed. It's been closed for almost a year. And there are no tourists coming in, so there's no one to buy the things they're making. But when it does break, then they will have these made. Go to the next slide. That's embroidery. Some of you may remember I had embroidery. It's out on the table. Very beautiful, make beautiful clothing. And they are sitting there doing the embroidery. It's important that they have something that they can do. And these girls will have to have the equipment to set it up in order to be successful. Go to the next slide. That's the girls in the tailoring school. Most of our girls in Nepal learn to be tailors. After they complete the school, which takes 2 years, we give them a sewing machine. We give them a pair of scissors. We give them a measuring tape, and they're in business. They're in business back in their home community, and every one of them have been successful in their business. Now, during the time that the lockdown was going on, there was no work. And of course, we have to feed the people, and we had to support the girls because they did not have enough business to make it. Go to the next slide. Each of our safe houses grows their own vegetables, grows their own fish, grows their own frogs. When I say frogs, some people don't say, what? Going to eat frogs? Yes, frog legs are just as good as chicken legs. You probably wouldn't know the difference. So all of these, go to the next slide. All the slides you see, those are bins and they're ponds. And we go catfish in one, tilapia in one, frogs in another one, and even snails. So they produce their own food. That's important. Go to the next slide. Okay, that's where they have planted the rice. The rice is up and green, and we provide our own rice for the girls. Let's go to the next slide. You'll see that's where the girls in the safe house are doing the work. They did the planting of the seeds, planting of the rice. They're doing the harvesting. They take a sickle and they cut the rice, put it into a shock, let it dry. Then they do the same thing that you read of in the Bible. They take it and they beat it. They beat it out. And then they throw it up in the air. Then they let the wind blow the chaff out. Then they collect the rice together, put it in sacks, and use it for their food. Go to the next slide. This is in Nepal. I received an email from him several weeks ago. Only about 2 or 3 weeks ago. He said, the government has given me 300 baby chicks, and the government will give us baby chicks. And this is in our area where we raise chickens at each one of our facilities. And this is where 300 baby chicks are now ready to be sold. So it's a way of being self-sustaining. Go to the next slide. This is in the Philippines. Go to the next one. And my son grows papaya, he grows kiwi, pineapple, many. I don't even know a lot of the vegetables that they have, but they're different from what we eat. One morning, I remember they said, we're going to have morning glory for breakfast. I didn't know you ate morning glory. I've heard of morning glory all my life, but I did not know it was a food. It's a food that they eat on a regular basis. Go to the next slide. Now that's the corn crop. That's Ranchi. He is about 50 kilometers from Narayanga, where is our location, or our central location for the operations in Nepal. And he's planted the corn, raised the corn, got the corn ready to sell. Now sometimes they'll use the corn for themselves. Go to the next slide. Okay, we have a bunch of workers. They're called honeybees. And we have hives at each one of the locations. Bees make the honey. The honey is provided to the cook to use in place of sugar. The excess honey is sold on the market. Go to the next one. Do you know how to attract a bee and get a queen bee to a hive? Well, you'd have to learn how. We have to have a queen bee for every hive, and that's where they are getting the bees to come. And when they see a queen bee, they get her into the hive, and all the bees will follow and they'll make her a hive. We have 5 hives at most locations today. Go to the next slide. These are the girls in Vientiane, Laos, who work in the vocational school. They built the beehives that you see on the left. By making their own beehives, they save money, because we have to buy the beehives if they don't make them. Go to the next slide. Okay, on the left, do you know what that is? Do you recognize it? Anyone in here? They're growing mushrooms. Those growing mushrooms. I don't understand the process, because I've never been, I've seen it in Asia, but that's what they're doing. They're growing mushrooms, and they sell the mushrooms to the restaurants and to individuals and to grocery stores to sell them to the people. So we have growing mushrooms at each one of our facilities to provide the support. On the right, you see a lot of barbed wire. That's on the Mekong River. We go up and down the Mekong River every time we go to Vientiane, what is the name of the town? I can't think of it. Luang Prabang. It's north of Vietnam, Vientiane, and we're taking the wire up there. There are no fences. All the cattle, all the hogs, every kind of animal that you can imagine is roaming loose. At night, the farmer gets them to all come back, and they'd all come back usually to his house. But we have to have wire, because now we're getting the people all up and down the Mekong River to grow gardens. We furnish them with a pump to pump the water to irrigate the gardens out of the Mekong River. And this is the barbed wire. They're ready to load it onto the boat to take it up, so that we can put fences around our gardens to protect our food that is being grown, because we don't want to feed all the animals that would be coming. Go to the next slide. It's very good, I think, for the children. This is in the Philippines, so you see a boy there. But it's very good for the young people to learn how to produce their own food. The Laotian government is communist, and they have put out an announcement to all the population of Laos. Everyone start back growing your own food. So these children, these young people, need to know how they can sustain their lives when there is no income at this time. Next slide. This is what we call disaster relief. We actually started it while we were in the Philippines. In poor countries, and by the way, Nepal is the 3rd poorest nation in the world. It's similar to Haiti. But we have to take care of the people, because they make their money one day to buy their food for the next day. There has been no work now in Nepal for almost a year. So we have been feeding 2,800 people in Nepal ever since we were in the Philippines when we came back to the United States. The number has grown even larger now. We're feeding the people of Laos also up and down the Mekong River because we're furnishing the gardens. We furnish the tools to use to grow the plants. We take care of their medical needs. We do everything because they have no money. They have nothing. I know it's hard for you and me as an American to realize that there are people in the world who have nothing, absolutely nothing. When the work starts back, when the border opens between Thailand and Laos, there'll be many workers that'll be coming into Thailand to work. And then they'll have money again to buy their food. But until that point, we have to provide the food. Go to the next slide. Well, the virus is bad enough. But when a whole village, 150 houses, all burned to the ground at one time, that is what happened in that village. Every house in that village burned to the ground except the few that you see on the other side of the road. Every possession that these people had is gone. So we had to start feeding them. Go to the next slide. We provide a tent city. We provide all their food. Their basic food is rice. So the main thing that we had to provide is rice. Go to the next slide. The little innocent children have no food unless we provide rice. Rice is all they eat. That's not a very good diet, but it is rice in the morning, rice at noon, and rice again that night. Go to the next slide. That's where we bring in the rice. We bring the rice in from Noaranga or from Kathmandu. It is imported from China and from India. They do not grow enough rice in Nepal to supply the need. We give each family a sack, 30 kilograms of rice, which is to last them for 1 month. And in most cases, it lasts them for 1 month. But many times, they are in areas where we cannot even get to their villages. A truck cannot get there. We use a tractor with a trailer. Go to the next slide. Well, if the truck and the tractor can't get there, there are donkeys that can. We load the rice on the backs of the donkeys, and the donkeys go up. And this is right on the Himalayan mountains. It's very, very mountainous. And that's the only way that we could get food to the Christians. By the way, we're only feeding Christians at this time. Many times the Christians will give food to their neighbors. And you know that has resulted in many baptisms. When they see Christians caring for them, loving them, they will listen to the story of the gospel of Christ. Go to the next slide. Okay, that's after you get up into the mountains, up into the Himalayan mountains. That's in their house. And there they are. They have their sack of rice, which is going to have to last them for 30 days. Nothing but rice. Go to the next slide. It's cold in the Himalayan mountains even now. We had to provide them with sleeping bags and quilts and blankets in order for them to keep. They sleep on the ground. They don't have beds. They sleep on the ground. So here they are. They come down out of the mountains, away from their homes, and pick up a sleeping bag for them to sleep in. Go to the next one. This is a typical village on the Laotian Mekong River. We visit there every time we go. And it is a hard life. One of the reasons the life is so hard is because the government is communist, and the communists hate Christians. So therefore, if you're a Christian, by the way, when communism came into Laos, the Christians fought against communists. So that's the reason they hate them so much. So if a Christian wants to live, he lives along the Mekong River in some of the villages that we visit. And that's the kind of life they live right there. You'll see on that drop down, I can't read the numbers from back here, probably 1,000 or at least that are being fed. That may be from Nepal or from Laos. They don't have electricity. They don't have running water. They don't have any of the necessities of life. It is a hard, hard life. Go to the next slide. This was an old widow woman. She has no income. She has nothing. And the only thing she asked for was one sack of rice. Now, she's not a member of the church. I hope they'll be able to convert her. She lives in that little shack by herself. And we gave her a sack of rice, even though she was not a member of the Lord's church. Go to the next slide. That's a typical kitchen on the left. When they can raise some corn, the corn is hung up in the kitchen and let it dry. When the corn dries, the children have to take over, and it's their responsibility to crush the corn into meal. And the children on the right are crushing the corn into cornmeal mush. In areas where they cannot grow rice, they can grow corn. And so the corn becomes the basic of the menu, and it's just a cornmeal mush that they will cook in that one pot, and that's their food. Go to the next slide. That young girl was pitiful. She was blind, and if you looked at her eyes, you'd know she had cataracts. She had cataracts across both eyes. She was born with cataracts. That's pretty rare, but sometimes a baby is born with cataracts, and that's the hardest kind of cataract to correct. She was born with cataracts. So I finally was able to get her. By the way, these people along the river, the Christians, have no ID. They have no identification of any kind. So they can't travel. They can't get on any public transportation. So I finally got the government allows to issue her a passport. With the passport, I can get her to Bangkok. And I got her to Bangkok. The picture on the right is after the first surgery, cataract removed, and she could see for the first time in her life. Waited a week, I think, had the next surgery on the second eye. She can see with both eyes, and the picture on the left is her sight is perfect. Now, she's never been to school because she couldn't read or write or do anything. So we're going to bring her into Vientiane very soon. She's going to be able to go to school. She'll learn to read and to write and get an education. She was so happy that she could see. She would hug everybody that she came in contact with. She was just joy unbelievable. Pat and I were at her location. We got out of this boat. We go up and down the Mekong River, which will scare you to death if you're in it. It's a high-speed boat. But we got out of the boat, and then you got to climb way steep hill. She came down and helped Pat going up or coming back down to get into the boat. And she's so happy now that to have your sight is a wonderful blessing. Go to the next slide. I told you they have no electricity, but you see a light burning in the center. But you don't know that there's a little generator out back running to furnish the light for one bulb. That's all they have, one bulb. And there's the worship service at night. Some of those people have climbed the mountain, 8 hours up and down, back down to the Mekong River, where the worship service is held. And every Sunday, they will walk 8 hours coming to worship, and they walk 8 hours going back home. They're the most dedicated people that I have ever seen in my life. They love the Lord, and they're going to do everything in their power to please Him and to go to be with Him in heaven when this life is over. They're singing songs. You would not recognize, of course, the words, but you would recognize the tune because it's the same songs that we sing, and they sing those at their worship service. They have no furniture in their houses. They sometimes will have a little stool, a little short stool. And every time I go into one of their little houses, they say, "You sit on the stool." I know what they think. Oh man, he has to have a stool or he can't get up. But that's the furniture. That's the extent of their furniture, is that little stool. Go to the next slide. Well, we say we take the girls between the average 10 and 16. No, it's now 8 years old. We take in girls from 8 to 16 primarily, and they will leave our house when they're 20 years old. How many are enslaved around the world? How many have been sold at one of the slave markets? How many have been carted off into Australia, to Europe, Canada, the United States? 39 million. That's just staggering to believe. The abuse, the mistreatment, they are high homicide. They have the highest homicide rate of any human being on the earth. They're beaten, they're mistreated. If they don't meet their quota, no food tonight. You're locked in your room. That's it. It's sad. Go to the next one. So you see, our whole mission is to save lives and save souls. And we do that one at a time. And we will save the life of every girl that comes, that qualifies. We have a pre-qualification. I don't think I've ever turned one down. I can't turn them down because I know too much about human trafficking. I want to thank you for being a part of our work. You're a part of God's team in Asia, saving lives and saving souls. Thank you, and God bless you.